In the spirit of the NASCAR Pro Invitational Series going to Wilkesboro this weekend, I thought it'd be cool to go do a little bit of a throwback of myself with the Rise and Fall this week, in an episode that has been requested by multiple, and I mean multiple, of people down in the comment section. That's right. In the history of NASCAR, it's a solid argument that Robert Yates may quite possibly be considered one of the greatest figures of all time in terms of his contributions to the sport, and in 2018, 1 year after losing his life to liver cancer, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame for his and his family's name's contributions to NASCAR racing, both in terms of being a team owner and developing powerful engines for Ford's NASCAR teams. And while the family name still lives on of Robert Yates' son Doug Yates, continuing on Robert Yates Racing engines in conjunction with the team of Roush Fenway Racing, I'd like to take a look back today at one of NASCAR's greatest Ford teams of all time, Robert Yates Racing. Okay, so technically I guess I should go ahead and clarify that the team's name was technically Yates Racing, despite most knowing it as Robert Yates Racing, but when Robert retired in December of 2007, it continued to be owned and operated by Robert's son Doug. Now, over the course of 21 years, Yates Racing has fielded cars in the Cup Series, all commonly with the number 8 involved in the 28, 38, 88, and 98. To do this video, I'd like to break it down by each car number, who drove it, and when they drove it, rather than year by year directly. However, before we start discussing the team's famous Cup Series program, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge Yates' time owning in the Busch Series as well, and it all started in 2002 with the series and NASCAR debut of dirt racer Kasey Kahne at just the age of 22 years old, which was rather young to be at this level by 2002 standards. However, despite his success later on in the Cup Series, winning 18 races of 93 top 5s and 176 top 10s with 27 pole awards, his 2002 run of Yates' number 98 Channel Lock Ford, he would make 20 starts and miss the field at the 2002 night race at Bristol. In the 20 races he made, Kahne would keep an average finish of 22nd and would score just one top 10, finishing 10th at Michigan in 2002. After 2002, Yates would stay out of the Busch Series until returning in a partnership deal with City Financial, Roush's program, and a few of the Yates Nextel Cup Series drivers when number 90 would hit the track in the Busch Series. The first few seasons saw a mixture of Yates Cup Series drivers such as Dale Jarrett and Elliott Sadler driving number 90, but also saw some developmental talents taking the wheel, such as Stephen Light, who would land a full-time ride in a 90 car for 2007, in which Light would score 7 top 10s, 3 top 5s, and at Kentucky in 2007 he would score Yates Racing their one and only Busch Series victory. After 2007, Yates Racing took a break from Nationwide Series racing in 2008, but when Paul Menard brought in the funding in 2009, they came back to the series on a limited time basis, with Menard driving number 98 in 16 nationwide races, in which he'd score 4 top 10s and 1 top 5. After that though, Yates Racing would be done, and therefore they of course would not run any more nationwide races. So now, that's enough of the Busch and Nationwide Series. Let's talk about their Cup cars now, starting with probably Yates Racing's most famous and iconic storied cars, the number 28. This is where it all began. In 1988, the team of Rainier Lundy Racing was shutting down, and the buyer of those assets was none other than Mr. Robert Yates, and he chose to keep young Davey Allison of the famed Alabama Allison gang on to drive the number 28, which he had been doing for the last few seasons with Rainier Lundy since his rookie year in 1987. And driving for Yates' Haviland-sponsored number 28 Ford brought on some of the best results the sport had seen, and it showed signs of many years of success, with 15 wins, 45 top 5s, 64 top 10s, and 6 pole awards between 1989 to 1993, and the partnership would be a key factor in that infamous championship battle of 1992 between Allison, Alan Kulwicki, and Bill Elliott. However, the next year in 1993, the world was shocked to hear the news of the loss of Allison when he was killed in a helicopter crash at Talladega Superspeedway. He was just 32 years old. Following Allison's death, Robbie Gordon drove the 28 car for one race at Talladega Superspeedway before Lake Speed would drive for the next 3 races before Yates Racing would pull in Ernie Irvan from Morgan McClure Motorsports. With the introduction of Irvan, it all began to seem like the old days again, as the pairing became yet another memorable and successful run, with Ernie Irvan scoring a total of 8 wins, 35 top 5s, 52 top 10s, and 10 pole awards during his time driving for Yates Racing. Now, according to the record books, you would probably say that Irvan's best season in the 28 car was in 1996 due to his finish of 10th in the standings, but statistically it'd be his 1994 season when he scored 3 victories, 13 top 5s, and 15 top 10s with an average finish of 8.9. And he looked to be a serious threat for the championship after 20 races in 1994. However, when the team was at Michigan, Irvan was involved in a serious crash in which he would suffer life-threatening injuries, and he would not race again at all in 1994, with Kenny Wallace driving the remaining 10 races for the 28 team. In 1995, the status of Irvin was still unsure, so Yates Racing needed to find a driver to run full-time in a 28 car. As Irvin continued his road to recovery, he would attempt 4 of the final races in the 1995 season in a Texaco Havoline-sponsored number 88 Ford, in which he would make 3 of these races, scoring a top 10 at Wilkesboro and Atlanta. So with Irvin out, Yates would hire in a driver who would later go on to help define his team's legacy, as Dale Jarrett would be hired in from Joe Gibbs Racing to drive the 28 car, scoring 1 pole award, 14 top 10s, 9 top 5s, and 1 victory at Pocono in a 28 car, leading to a 13th place finish in the standings. And with Irvin returning to racing the number 28 full-time in 1996, Yates would make a second car full-time for Jarrett in 1996, keeping the number 88 Ford for Dale Jarrett that Irvin ran part-time in 1995, but we'll talk about what became here in just a little while. So Irvin had returned to driving the 28 car and would do so until the end of 1997, and after this, Yates would sign Kenny Irwin Jr., who would win Rookie of the Year honors in 1998, but would be unsuccessful in finding victory lane before he would leave the team to drive for Felix Sabates' number 42 car in 2000, and sadly, we all know what would happen to him here. After 1999, Robert Yates would sign on Ricky Rudd, still fresh off the closure of his own racing team the year prior, to drive the number 28 Texaco Havoline Ford, in which he would be the driver for 3 seasons from 2000 to 2002. During this period, Rudd would score 4 pole awards, 53 top 10s, 34 top 5s, and 3 victories driving the 28 car, finishing 5th, 4th, and 10th in the standings during his 3 seasons with the team. Following 2002, Yates Racing and Wood Brothers Racing would essentially do a switcheroo, with Rudd going to Wood Brothers number 21 car, and Wood Brothers driver Elliott Sadler came over to Yates Racing, and the team would finally renumber the 28 car to the 38 car. But before we talk more about the history of the 38 car, let's discuss what happened in 2008 and 2009 as we saw the resurrection of the 28 car with Travis Quaffle. In 2007, Ricky Rudd had found his way back to the team in the number 88 car, and again, we're gonna get there, but after 2007, Rudd would finally retire, but with Dale Earnhardt Jr. going to Hendrick Motorsports, Yates Racing would give the rights to the number 88 to Hendrick and Earnhardt, which just made sense because he had been using it already for the car he owned in the Busch series. So with that happening, Yates brought back the OG number 28 with Quaffle behind the wheel, but similar to his 2008 teammate David Gilliland, he did struggle to bring in a fully committed sponsor. But despite this, Quaffle did have quite possibly one of the greatest seasons of his Cup Series career, with 1 pole award in October at Talladega and 4 top 10s in 2008, and considering how far the performance had dropped for the team by then and how much others had caught up, this was impressive to see for the 28 team. Then finally in 2009, the owner's points of the 28 car were transferred to the 98 of Paul Menard, and with still being unable to secure a sponsor not on a race-by-race basis, it would leave Yates Racing with the difficult decision to finally end their most famous car after just 5 races in 2009. So now let's talk about that number 38 car and what became of it. In 2003, Elliott Sadler came over to the team, and Yates Racing renumbered the 28 car to the 38, and longtime sponsor Havoline had left the team to join Jamie McMurray in the number 42 team of Ganassi Racing. So with this, Elliott Sadler's team was able to bring in Mars Incorporated to the team, specifically with M&M's on the 38 team's car, in a partnership that would remain in place until the end of 2007, when they would leave to join Kyle Busch and Joe Gibbs Racing in 2008, where they have remained ever since. But in the first 3 seasons of Sadler and Yates, they were actually rather competitive, especially in 2004 with Elliott Sadler scoring 2 victories with 8 top 5s and 14 top 10s, leading to a career best finish of 9th in the 2004 standings. Then in 2006, things got a little strange. So every year, a new NASCAR video game was developed at the time by EA Sports, and in 2006 game's NASCAR 07, Elliott Sadler in the 38 car were selected to be the cover athlete of the game. Well, imagine everyone's surprise when Sadler announces on August 14, 2006 that he was leaving to race for Ray Evernham's number 19 car, which was 3 weeks before the release of the video game that he was on the cover of. You get the game, and it's instantly dated on day 1 with the cover athlete driving an entirely different car in reality on the first day of the game. So that's no big deal, but it is indeed a funny side story of the Yates Racing story. So after this, David Gilliland would then take over the driving duties of the 38 car, even scoring a pole award at Talladega, and at the 2007 Daytona 500, when he was re-signed by the team, Gilliland would get another pole award, proving that the team still had speed on these restrictor plate tracks. In fact, in that 2007 Daytona 500, he was on the front row with his teammate Ricky Rudd. Again, after Mars Incorporated would leave the team for Kyle Busch, it put David Gilliland in the 38 car in a position where where sponsorships were hard to come by, but for the most part they were able to remain funded by freecreditreport.com. But after 2.5 seasons in the 38 car, producing 4 top 10s, 2 top 5s, and 2 pole awards, David Gilliland would be released following 2008, and the 38's owner points were sold to Hall of Fame Racing and a number 96 team for 2009, and with the focus being on Paul Menard's number 98 car, there was no more room for Gilliland in the 38 car at Yates Racing. With that being said though, David Gilliland would in fact eventually find himself back in a number 38 Ford by way of Front Row Motorsports. So now only 2 more cars to discuss, and before we talk about one that many know and love, let's talk first about that final car of the team's history, the number 98. So the history of the number 98 actually dates back sooner than you may imagine. Originally there was one car that was ran as an additional entry for Yates Racing, the number 90, backed by City Financial, that made a handful of starts in 2006, and very similar to its Busch series counterpart, it was driven by the likes of Development drivers Stephen Light, in addition to one time at Watkins Glen by Mark Goosens. Goosens would start 27th in the race, but finish in last place after a crash, finishing 58 of 90 laps. As for Light, he would debut in the car at Pocono, starting 36th and finishing in 33rd, and they would return the next week at Indianapolis, but would fail to qualify for the 2006 Brickyard 400. After this, the team would halt operations of this additional entry until 2009, when Paul Menard was signed to the organization after driving with DEI for years before this. Bringing in funding from his family's hardware store, it meant that Yates could afford to compete the full season in 2009, but it would not be with any success, as Menard had 0 top 10s with an average finish of 27th place. After the first season of Yates being unsuccessful, it would lead to Doug Yates selling his family's team to Richard Petty Motorsports, in addition to the team of Ray Evernham, and with Yates' engine still being in operation, this played a key factor in the teams all having backing by Ford the next season. But we still have one more storied car to discuss. Let's not end this video on a sad note of the team's closure and sale. Before Dale Earnhardt Jr. would pilot the number 88 car, there was another guy named Dale who helped make this number famous. As mentioned earlier, after coming over from Joe Gibbs Racing to drive the 28 car in 1995, Dale Jarrett was able to land himself an opportunity to be Yates' second driver in 1996, driving the number 88 Ford, which was used in a handful of races at the end of 95 by the now recovered Ernie Irvan. In the beginning, Dale Jarrett rocked the red and blue colors of Ford Credit and Ford Quality Care, and he'd start off his time into the car with a bang, scoring his second Daytona 500 victory driving the number 88 car in 1996. Jarrett would go on to win 3 more races that season, getting a total of 4, including 3 of NASCAR's most prestigious, winning the Daytona 500, Coke 600, and the Brickyard 400, all in 1996, finishing 3rd in the standings. The next year in 1997, Jarrett would get a total of 7 victories, the most of any of his career, and this was followed up by 23 top 10s, 20 of which were top 5s. However, as good as that season was, Jeff Gordon was 14 points better, as Dale Jarrett did not win his first championship in 1997. He did, however, win it in 1999 in a season that would give him 29 top 10s, 24 top 5s, and 4 victories, as he would be the one and only driver to score a championship for the team. It was indeed here when they had reached their highest of highs. Dale Jarrett would go on to score a total of 29 wins in the 88 car, the most of any driver of the team, and in 2001, Dale Jarrett would sign on with one of his most iconic sponsors, welcoming UPS in with Yates Racing, who would stay until 2006, leaving the team with Dale Jarrett when he made a jump to Michael Waltrip Racing in 2007. So then in 2007, still with the support of Mars Incorporated, number 88 of Yates Racing continued for one more season without its longtime driver Dale Jarrett, with Ricky Rudd back of Yates Racing until August 20th, when he announced that he would retire from NASCAR. Rudd would make 31 starts total with the 88 team, driving the first 25 races along with the final 6 races of 2007, with Kenny Wallace driving in races 26 through 29, and Mike Wallace drove race number 30 at Talladega. Between the 3, the 88 car would account for just 1 top 10 in 2007, and on September 14, 2007, it was announced that the number 88 was transferred by Yates Racing to Hendrick Motorsports for 2008, and then that led right back into the return of number 28 in 2008, bringing us full circle. What started out as one of the sport's most competitive programs would eventually evolve over time through good times and tragedy, finding the top of the mountain at one time until eventually they could no longer keep up with their competition. The closure of Yates Racing was sad to see in 2009 as they merged with Petty's team, but at least the name of Robert Yates still lives on today through Yates Racing engines, with Robert Yates' very deserving spot in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Thanks for watching. What were your thoughts on the rise and fall of this team? Were you a fan of their drivers? Leave a comment down below and let the discussion continue. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like on the video. It really does help my channel out a lot. Have a suggestion for my next video? Please let me know what you'd like to see down in the comments. If you want to support the channel, a Teespring is up with some channel merch. And if you're new here, or if you just haven't done so yet, please subscribe and turn on notifications and never miss a new video. And you can follow me on Twitter at DannyBTalks to keep the discussions going. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Bye guys.